Hello, adventurers! Today's episode is coming to you courtesy of Reddit's DM Academy. We found some top posts from users seeking advice and brought them to the roundtable. We got a party who doesn't trust anything they kill to stay dead, so they turn into serial decapitators. The DM who might regret the silly joke magic items. The sassy party who are a little less Fellowship of the Ring and a little more mean girls. And we get into the do's and don'ts of drinking at the gaming table. We hope our advice is helpful, and if not, we hope it's at least entertaining. Let's get into this thing. Everybody roll initiative.
Sometimes talking with friends feels like role-playing. Sometimes it feels like combat. Join us at the round table and roll initiative. This is Curmudgeons and Dragons.
All right, welcome back to another Curmudgeons and Dragons. We got a fun one today. We're going to get into our DM Academy advice columnists. My fellow columnists here who are ready to dole out their advice. Whether or not it's good advice is up to them. I've got Josey Diaz here.
First bit of advice, time's not real. Don't care if it's a construct, but it's definitely not real.
Also non-DM Josey Diaz, so can't wait to hear her DM opinions.
Yeah, I'm chock full of words.
She may steer you in the wrong direction just to piss off DMs.
I just want to be included, and I want to make Greg pull his hair out.
We wouldn't have you any other way, Josey.
That's why I got him a shirt that says, "You can certainly try."
Yes.
And try she will.
Currently with a full head of hair. We'll see how that goes. Greg Genovas is here.
Hello. Second piece of advice, money isn't real. We should abolish it.
We proved that a few months ago with crypto. We basically proven that banks are made up.
Yeah, but Texas wants to instate that to help with their power grid situation, so we'll see how that goes.
Cool. And Jim Crocker's here.
Yes, helping baby DMs is the closest I'm ever going to get to parenting. So I'm looking forward to this.
We got plenty of babies on the show.
Hi!
A couple DMs now, too.
Mm-hmm.
We got a baby and a DM, so I get together. I DM'd a one-shot once. I suppose I'm a baby DM, too.
Yeah, it's like learning how to ride a bicycle. Once you know how, you always know how.
Sure.
Unless you had a traumatic brain injury and lose part of your memory, then you might have some trouble.
So today's show, I've got Reddit r/DM Academy pulled up. Got it sorted by top post of the month, and we're looking for people who are posting looking for advice. So it'd be rude if we didn't give them advice, right?
Very true.
Let's go dole out some advice. All right. You guys ready for this?
Hit it.
Yup.
All right.
I was born ready.
This is posted by a user, what looks like a random cat walked across their keyboard. User NZ8DRZU6.
Oh, yeah, Zugger.
Yeah.
Oh, I know him.
Nazate Dr. Zoo6. Cool. Post is, I used Feign Death once, and now my players decapitate all the monsters. My players were fighting a semi-BBEG who used Feign Death, and when he came back, my players realized they'd been fooled. Now, after every combat encounter, my players asked to cut the heads off every creature they fight to ensure they're actually dead. I feel like this spell is now useless. Is Feign Death one of those one-trick pony spells the DM shouldn't use twice?
I was trying to figure out what the problem was with everybody cutting off everybody's heads.
Well, the problem is he played his hand, and now the players are kind of going right into it, assuming that every death is a fake one. So, what do you guys think?
Good on the players for learning their lesson exactly one time.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those spells that's really kind of meant for PCs and not necessarily for DM characters, for NPCs. Because that's the situation you get into. And I guess the thing that I'm not clear about is he doesn't consider the fact that the PCs are going around willy-nilly killing every single creature, like literally decapitating every single creature that they run into. Like, that's not the problem. The problem is that he can't use Feign Death again.
I feel like the issue isn't that like they're murder hoboing. It's when they do kill a creature, they decapitate it.
That's what I'm getting at this too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that the fights and the murders are not the problem.
Yeah, that was something they should have saved for almost the end of the campaign.
And I think it's not even the fact that he's like, oh, I can't use Feign Death anymore. It's just that, like, okay, now the players are like overly cautious of Feign Death.
I feel like this is just a trapped door problem with a different situation. Like, you have one trapped door in like the middle of your campaign. Your players never want to touch another door again.
So I'm looking through some of the comments here on what people are suggesting. The top comment here is, I just scrolled right past it. It says, maybe the spell is useless now, at least for a while. It says, you shouldn't punish your players as many others are suggesting, though having NPCs notice their terrifying habit could be fun. Your players have adapted to information given to them, but that's their prerogative. So, yeah, them adapting to, adapting and overcoming one little party trick is interesting. However, do you really want to be known as the party that decapitates every single thing you fight?
That's a point I was actually going to bring up. It is one thing to like kill your enemies. We're in D&D. That is expected. It is another to like defile the corpse.
Yeah.
And mutilate
Yeah, not
the corpse.
all NPCs are actually cool with mutilation, it turns out.
Yeah.
The DM could even throw in something like, okay, well, for this task, I need you to bring it back intact, not just like the head or whatever. And if you decapitate it, they're going to be like, you fucked up, you're not getting your gold.
You Boba Fetted it, yeah.
No soup for you.
You're like some sort of clergy that doesn't like the fact that they're desecrating corpses. And
so here's the thing that I'm curious about, which is reading Feign Death. So let's start with that. Let's start with reading Feign Death and how it actually works. You can't cast it on yourself. You can't, like, somebody has to cast it on you. So you touch I guess you touch a willing creature and put it into a cataleptic state that is indistinguishable from death. I suppose that could be yourself. You can do that to yourself.
Yeah.
But
I don't know about you, Jim, but I touch myself all the time.
So for the spell's duration or until you use an action to touch the target and dismiss the spell, it appears dead to all outward inspection. The spell is used to determine blah, blah, blah. Blinded, incapacitated, speed drops to 0, but it lasts for an hour. So, like, what was the situation where, I mean, I guess, like, they thought they killed everybody, they went away, and then they found out an hour later somehow that this villain was back or something like that?
Maybe they thought the coast was clear and they were like, fuck it, we know this keep is cleared. What if we took a long rest here?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. Like as with so many of these, like, I want more details. Like, I want the specifics of, like, what happened? How did that affect them? What is, what did that mean and stuff? And so I want to know more.
So there's a few things I could think of that could have happened. One, it could have been what Josey said. They took a rest and that's what took up the extra hour. Could have been they just, ignored that line or didn't read it or didn't understand it. Or, I mean, like, this is the big bad. The spells don't have to work 100% as they're written if it makes a good story.
Yeah, but then the problem there is not Feign Death. The problem is that you made up an effect that was like Feign Death, but it's not actually Feign Death.
I believe the post said it was like a semi-BE big bad.
It wasn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't
mini boss.
bad.
Yeah. So from that, I'm thinking like they had the encounter with it. It used Feign Death on itself, and then some amount of sessions later, they encountered him again.
Yeah, it just said he came back. It doesn't say immediately.
Yeah, I still have so many questions because, like, it's an obvious spell. It's got a verbal, semantic, and material component to it. And it's not like a thing where, like, you cast it in advance and then you can decide when you're gonna get killed by it. Like, it is a touch effect spell that takes effect immediately. So, like, the party would have seen him woogity boogity cast a spell and then go derp like this, and then whomp, he falls down dead. Or like his whatever, assistant, cleric, priest, cultist, or something like that casts a spell and then touches him and he falls down dead. Like, like I said, I need to know so much more about how this actually came about, that they didn't get, like, the cleric didn't get a chance to notice it or any of that kind of stuff. That was
true.
I will say the subtle spell ability from the sorcerer class is not a bad one to just draft on a higher up underling of the main boss.
This is I mean, we're getting into
No,
like
right.
pure
True,
speculation.
true.
It's like, well, if I put subtle spell and do a thing where he does need the material component
Yes.
and he makes a
I'm going to
stealth check
take
to
your
cast it,
material
that's-
components. I'm going to throw them in the trash. You keep those away from me.
To be fair, it is a material component that is not consumed. So he could have had, again, going into speculation, like
face full
a
of
pinch of
grave dust.
graveyard.
Yeah.
A pinch of graveyard dirt is not hard to keep on your person unnoticed.
And now this is, and I'll address the DMs here directly. Is it worth looking over stuff like that if it made a good story? I think so.
I mean, if you're gonna mess with the way the stuff comes out of the book and you later realize that it's causing a problem in your campaign, what you do is you just step out for a second, go to the table level and just talk to the players and just say, hey, look, guys, I know that Feign Death thing was, you guys feel like whatever, like that was unfair or something like that. I'm just going to say from now on, like, you don't have to cut everybody's heads off. That's not going to happen again. If that's what you want to do, you can do that. Not 9 out of 10 of these problems are solved by just having a conversation at the table, telling everybody what the problem you see is, and then, letting them being a little bit transparent about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it.
And here's the thing about this entire series of this show. 10 out of 10 problems can be solved with that.
100%.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, so I did like, the more in-game resolutions where like, okay, the second they slip up, then we can start bringing it back just to kind of sneak up on them again. Or, have the town guard be like, oh, so you guys are the mad Decapitators.
Mm-hmm.
That has been whispered about in the streets. Like there's fun ways to go about this. One person commented here, one of the groups I run has developed the habit of decapitating enemies, putting their heads in a bag of holding, and interrogating the head using Speak with Dead at their leisure. It's not exactly related, but one good decapitation story deserves another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's,
Could
That's
you
the mood
imagine
you're in.
like intimidating somebody by being like, you want to know what's going to happen to you, and just dumping your bag of holding full of fucking heads down on the table?
That's an easy advantage if I've ever seen one.
Right.
Mhm.
The bag's like this big, you just start dumping like 40 heads.
They just
guys
keep
wanna-
coming.
clown heads. Yeah, that's
You did your Joe Pesci voice while you did it though.
Mhm.
Throwing 8 heads in a bag of holding here. Horrible Joe Pesci. We'll do another Bad Voices episode soon. Next story here. This is from user Spiven. It's SPVN.
I believe it's
Hello, Spiven.
Spiven.
Sven. Is he Swedish?
The
Spiven.
Spin.
Is he Roman? Is it spun?
It might be.
I'm planning on giving my level 1 players an invisibility cloak that gives the wearer lesser invisibility, but announces every action they make in a booming voice. Any possible exploits. Says it's meant to be a joke magic item since their first ever campaign, and I thought it'd be fun to have a funny magical item early on. The idea is stolen from a YouTube comment on Matt Mercer's DM Tips YouTube video. My take is that the cloak would announce their presence every 6 to 12 seconds, even if they're not moving. So it's not like they can just sit still in a corner with it on. Are there any obvious repeatable exploits they could do with the cloak that I'm not thinking of? I don't mind if there's specific situations that they can get around with it, just not something commonly repeatable. Oh, and I'm running Lost Minds of Pandelver just for reference. Thanks for any input.
my immediate thought is that silence is a 2nd level spell, and that you cast it on the cloak, and so your rogue can't be heard. They can't speak to you, but since they probably want to be quiet anyway, that's the obvious exploit. That's the thing I'd immediately do. Is I would have our illusionist or our magic user, our sorcerer, or whoever is the caster.
Sure.
As soon as they hit level 3 and they can cast those 2nd level spells, I'd like make sure you have a silence ready to go, because then I've got an invisibility cloak that I can just walk around in way before I ought to have one.
My problem with that is the OP said specifically it is at least a majority of the party's first campaign.
Yeah, that was my
so
first thought.
like silence is not one of those commonly known spells. Also,
well, he's not asking, is my party going to know? He said,
well, yeah.
Are there exploits? And this is the exploit. And all the party has to do to find out is go online and say, our DM gave us this thing. How can we mess with them? And somebody who knows anything about the game will immediately say, oh, you know what I would do? I'd put a silence on that sucker, and then you've got a invisibility cloak that you're walking around with.
You could definitely just use that cloak to be obnoxious to your fellow party members, which is something I would 100% never do.
I mean, the other thing that you could do, here's the other exploit, and this is kind of a reversal, which is you just like drop it over one of the bad guys and you can't see them, but it's going to announce what they're about to do every time. And you just use it as an exploit for yourself, because like as soon as they attack, right, invisibility goes away. But if you've got the cloak on, it's still announcing what you're going to be doing. So you just drop it on any enemy where you want to know what their plans are.
I like that.
Yeah. Personally, I just don't know if I would give joke items to in a party entirely composed of new players.
Oh no, this is a terrible idea and they shouldn't do it.
I don't know. I could have a lot of fun with this.
That's my advice, personally.
Yes, of course you would. But like
I'm a menace.
I know, but like the fact that you enthusiastically say, I would have so much fun with that, I think is a reason for us to then question, do we really want to do that?
That's an indication that things are about to go wrong. Anytime Josey gets excited about it.
For
a
sure.
little bit of a distant early warning.
I want to be upset, but you're right. So I'm just going to sit here.
So I'm looking through the comments here, and like none of them are giving anything broken. In fact, more than one person has pointed out this silent spell, but that's that's a level 2 thing, and so is the invisibility spell. So like you're getting minor advantages of doing it that way. You're like it's it's whatever. Plus, brand new players aren't really going to be thinking about the spells they're getting at 3rd level because they're still on 1st level.
Yeah,
they got to worry about what's in the session now. Plus, whatever story plot, whatever plot stuff you're throwing at them too, they got to be thinking about that. So most of these comments are ways to make this as interesting as possible as from the DM side. My favorite one here, it says, if in doubt, give it a limited charge of duration. Perhaps the booming voice can sometimes announce loudly something like, you have 5 hours of free invisibility trial remaining. Register your invisibility cloak now at Roltan's Magical Wares. Fair prices for an unfair advantage.
Yeah, it just depends on how doofy you want to be, like, and how much you want to break the fourth wall and all that kind of stuff and everything. Sure. If this is one of those games where everyone just enjoys being silly and doing weird voices and stuff like that, then there's no reason not to, because it's like you say, it's not massively overpowered, but it's definitely goofy and like intrusive in a way that just a regular magic item wouldn't be. But if that's the kind of game you're running, then go all Monty Python on it if that's what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the wizard that they stole it from is named Winrar. I was playing a game a few months ago, and we ran into this traveling salesman who was selling us magic items for probably too good of a price, and we should have seen it coming a mile away. I remember very vividly his name was Wishcombe, and he had a strong accent that my friend will never admit to either or the other, but his accent kept changing. And I don't know if it was because he meant for it to change or if he just could not keep up that accent for long enough just as a person. It went from like Indian, Pakistani type of accent to like Italian to like bad Australian, and like just like changed with every sentence. And he gave us a bunch of magic items. The one that I ended up with was the ring of invisible. They kept like kind of like bumbling the names a little bit. I'm like, oh, cool, an invisibility ring. Only like level 4. I need this. I'm a ranger with sharpshooter. Like, I'm gonna be great if I could just be 600 feet away and shoot people invisibly. So I buy it. I attune to it. You can use an action to turn the ring invisible.
Sure.
Amazing.
So it was all stuff like that. His name Wishcombe was because they were from Wish.com.
Nice.
So taking the WinRAR effect on something like this, I thought was kind of a cool idea. All right, next. And Josey, this is I feel like was this submitted by user Greg Genovas? No, this is by user MegaMat215. How do I deal with an overly sassy party?
You mind your business.
My party's first instinct for most NPCs is to insult them, and it's getting on my nerves. In particular, every wizard gets called a nerd. How do I deal with this without derailing the plot? Every important NPC I introduce ends up hating them at worst, or barely tolerating them at best. I feel like straight up asking them to stop will just cause them to do it more.
Okay, wait, here's the thing, though. There's a difference between being sassy and just being outright rude to all of the
Mean.
NPCs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it
Like,
is. They're being
You can be
boats.
sassy and people be like, that's kind of endearing. But if you just immediately start insulting people upon meeting them, there's nothing you could be like, hey, this whole town hates you and you're no longer welcome here. Like,
Yeah, and NPCs not liking your players should have consequences.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
you guys aren't like gods beamed down from the sky. Like, you're just regular Joe schmoes. And if you go into the inn and you call the barkeep a prick, he's going to be like, okay, get out.
Yeah.
Like, no quests for you, no ale for you, no room, no board, no nothing. Fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
That's not
And
the
like-
same thing as being sassy. And that's probably something you're just going to want to talk to the players about. Like, hey, just so you know, if you treat everybody like a schmuck, they're going to do it back to you.
Do you really want to meet somebody who can throw a fireball and call him a nerd?
I mean, a little bit, but that's the the martial class in me.
That's because you're a bully.
This definitely feels like one of those things where like a little bit of it could be funny and fun,
Mhm.
but there's like a tipping point for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where too much of it, and if it was like if they were doing a little bit of it that was fun at the beginning, and like people start thinking, well, a little bit of it is fun, more of it must be even more fun, but then you hit that tipping point where it's like they said they're just now insulting everybody, and it's just not fun for the DM anymore. Then yeah, you got to say something. You got to say, hey, I know this was cool when we started, but it's just too much now.
Sure.
So it may even be just like dial it back 50% and it'll be fun again and we can all enjoy this.
I think that's a very good point. Like, I know it is our job as DMs to make sure that everyone at the table is having fun. I think we do need to remember that we are also one of the people at the table. So if we are not having fun with something that is obviously ongoing problem, we have the responsibility to be like, hey guys, this isn't cool anymore. Or maybe never was, depending on this DM situation.
The idea that he just thinks that it's them being sassy, and especially if it's the whole party, you got to sit down and talk with them. Be like, hey guys, like, you're not going to get anywhere treating everybody like they're garbage. It's not cute. It's not funny.
That conversation
Treat them
I
like
think
they're
has to
people.
come. That conversation has to come after they get in-game consequences.
Oh, yes.
So, like, the first time that a wizard, gets insulted by the word nerd, he's like, I'll show you who's a nerd, and do it in a nerdy voice, like, be a nerd. Okay, I'll show you who's a nerd, and they cast chain lightning. Or like, the ones who are about to get them a quest, it's like, you know what, I'll go find some professionals. And then
They're like,
in
I'm
front
not here
of
to
them
be
in the same
insulted.
tavern,
I'm not going to pay you to be a dick to me.
finding another adventuring party in the same tavern and giving them a huge bag of gold and put a dollar symbol on it, which I know is anachronistic, but that's even funnier.
Yeah.
Like a big sack full of money.
Really just drive that fucking point home.
Yeah. And then they get to, go rescue a cat from a tree as level 11s,
Mm-hmm.
For 2 gold.
Right. So this is the only quest giver that'll work with you anymore, man.
A child, because they don't know better.
Yeah. Or, oh God, the elf child is having trouble with bullies at school and you have to go deal with it. They keep calling me names.
Mm-hmm. Keep it on point. Keep it thematic.
You have to go murder a child and be the good guy for once.
I mean, and the other thing that you can do is if they've got friends in game, if they've got, NPCs that they're close to, I mean, it doesn't even necessarily, you can kind of have that like player level conversation, but in character, where the innkeeper, like their favorite innkeeper, can take that aside and go, you guys need to know that you've got a reputation around town as being huge dicks. And you should maybe do something about that because people are talking about hiring that other party instead of you guys. So maybe you might want to cool it.
Yeah. Or all the nerdy wizards he insulted, they have friends too. And they roll deep.
Oh, yeah.
And finally, they got a barbarian friend who can soak up damage for them.
I mean, like, I don't know any wizard who didn't belong to a college.
Yeah, you can deal with this in one session by like just let them get their asses kicked by everybody. And take names. I mean, your NPCs probably have names. Keep track of all of them that they've insulted, and they all show up. They're all mad, and then and instead of make it an unfair fight. get the TPK, but instead of killing them all, just make them apologize. And the next session, see what happens.
Yeah, and I do think it's important if you're going to do that, though, to make it clear after the fight that that's what the fight was about.
Yeah.
That it's not, that it's not like just a random ambush where like, why the hell are these guys attacking us? That after they beat them up, they say, maybe you'll think about going around town and, assassinating people before you...
The cloaked figure removes his hood and reveals, Rigrog, the wizard that you called a nerd last week. And you stole his lunch gold.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I got one more, and this is not really so much a game thing. This is a how you run your table type of thing. And the comments were way more all over the place than I thought they were. This was submitted by user Skidiop. Do you allow alcohol at your table? He says, personally, I don't drink while I DM, but I tolerate my players having a drink. So far, I didn't have any issues with anyone becoming drunk, even when our sessions ran for 7 or 8 or more hours. Luckily, my players can manage and control themselves, and I know for a fact that some of them can get properly shit-faced outside the D&D table. So as the title says, do you allow alcohol at your table? Why or why not? What are your experiences thus far?
I personally feel like that is something you have to get the vibe of the people you're playing with first. I know some of my players do drink at the table, but it is never...
It's me. I'm some of those players.
You are several of those players.
Oh, yeah. But it has never been to the point where they have become belligerent in or out of game from drinking. I know with the whole a lot of tables being online thing now, that's going to be a little bit more difficult to enforce.
Getting drunk in their own homes when they don't.
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's your house, like if you're the DM and you're doing this in your house and there's people there, then if you don't really want alcohol there, then I guess that's fair. But like, even if you you can't impose your sobriety onto other people as long as they can act like adults about it. I don't think. Like, don't get blackout drunk when you're trying to play a math game is a good, very low bar to have.
Yeah.
Right. Greg, are these players the type who would get belligerently drunk if they weren't playing D&D?
No.
Exactly. So you're circumventing that by playing with more responsible players.
Yeah. As someone who personally plays D&D inebriated, not alcohol, but definitely not sober.
Sure.
Yeehaw.
You can say hi. Just say hi.
All right. I smoke a little Swede, whatever.
He multi-classes as a druid. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that I think I've been very lucky with, where it's the players I choose to play with know that this is a social game and you have to have a wit about you, where it's like, this is not something where I can get blindly drunk and enjoy doing.
Right. We get the players who, even on the, especially on the Zoom game, like we know when his camera goes off, we know exactly what he's doing. Yeah. And I think if our DM's teenage son wasn't in the game, also his camera would stay on. But he at least has a wherewithal to not smoke in front of the kid. But yeah, it doesn't affect the game at all. And of course, we're not getting hammered. Like we're here to play. Okay, if you're there to drink, you're playing the wrong game.
Yeah.
Cards Against Humanity. It's so easy.
Yeah, I have to drink to forget that I'm playing Cards Against Humanity. And go play a real game. So most of the guys that I play with are brewers. Some of them work for breweries or have worked for breweries or homebrew, or are at least beer aficionados who hang out in breweries a lot. So us bringing interesting beers to the game is almost as important as playing the game.
Yeah, and it's not, and you're not going to be like slamming, like a good porter, it's a PBR or something like that. So, like 1 or 2 beers over the course of a 4-hour game, if you're enjoying them the same way you would, a decent meal or something like that, that seems entirely reasonable.
Yeah. Actually, this podcast was one of the early versions of it before we ever released it was going to be an actual play show. And Jack, our other host who is not on today's episode, was our DM. He owns a brewery. So every time we would go play with him, or most of the times when we would record in person, he would just show up with a whole bunch of crowlers and just be have at it. We tried recording, we tried getting like 4 episodes of an actual play show out of one session. So we were there for like 9 hours, and that's about 9 beers. Let me rephrase that. It was like 9 crowlers, which is like 18 beers. And we kept it together, but like, things are getting a little loose.
As long as you can still play, I don't really see the problem.
Yeah, if your character voice starts slipping a little bit, that's fine.
Like if you have, it's one thing if you're like, hey, like I'm an alcoholic, I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I would really rather you didn't have alcohol in my house with me while we play this game.
And that's the
fine.
Other big point. Yeah. And that goes beyond.
If it's just
D&D
because
also.
you would prefer people not be inebriated when you play the game, like discuss that maybe before the game.
Yeah, if you're hanging out for any reason, and you've got friends in recovery, which I have several. Half my friends are brewers, and the other half are in recovery. That's kind of just the dichotomy of who I hang out with, and I love them. I love them all. I think that's an important thing to keep track of. I had a friend come by, and he's a vegan. And he comes over for the first time.
I was about to say something about vegans.
Yeah, and I start looking around my house. I'm like, I've got nothing here for you. He's a vegan that doesn't drink. I'm like, I literally have nothing in this house except for like a glass of water and some seltzer that I can offer you. I don't have a single vegan treat in the house. And if it's not water, it's beer. And I started stocking food just for him. He would come by more often, and I had more friends because of it. But but just being cognizant of what people's preferences and tolerances are is going to keep the game fun for everybody.
And it's for sure one of those things where it's a question that you might answer differently if you're playing with people you know well, and like it's say a convention game or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't ever drink when I'm DMing or running a game because I want to make sure I have 100% clear head the whole time that I'm doing that. I will happily have 1 or 2 when I'm playing.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever I'm at a convention table, I always ask everybody, are you comfortable if I get a beer and bring it to the table, like after our first break? And 9 times out of 10, everyone says, oh yeah, heck, no problem. In fact, and then I'll offer to buy one for the other players, and, then everybody's happy.
And that's how you buy friends, people.
Well, if anybody, yeah, well, that's how you get people to, like heal you instead of taking another swing at the monster.
Yeah.
But, if anybody says no, or even just looks uncomfortable, I'll say, no problem, it's totally cool. Don't have to do it. Because that's one of those things where, like, if it's my friends and I know somebody's in recovery, I know what the story is there. I'm not going to ask somebody to out themselves at a convention table who I just met or anything like that. So I just kind of try to, read the room, right?
Yeah, and no one has to tell you.
I feel like that's what this one really comes down to is like respecting the other players and reading the room.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's all about communication.
I feel like you could just copy and paste that on every single one of these.
Please communicate with the party.
Right. Yeah. These are always going to come with the caveat of like, yes, just talk to your players like humans. That's always going to be a solution. But there's a lot of cool takes on whether or not people drink and why. I think a lot has to do with age also. So like, the teenagers who, and then the 20-year-olds who are discovering their limits with alcohol are probably drinking a lot heavier, whether it's just to, forget how bad their math test went. Or
some of us are at the point where if we have more than 1 or 2 beers, the problem is not that we're going to be slurring our words, that we're going to fall asleep at the
Especially
table.
if you're like sitting there drinking a glass of red wine, you're like, okay, I am. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Roll for
I'm running
initiative.
into that problem actually going to school with a bunch of 18 to 21-year-olds where they're all like, oh my God, yeah, like let's do shots of Fireball. And I'm like, I brought a bottle of white wine and that's what I'll be drinking.
Yeah, you go drink your candied
and then they're all
water,
like, oh my God, I feel so terrible. The next day I'm like, I drank a bottle of water and I was fine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's because you're drinking sugar. Kids got to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and boy, it sure seems like all of the drinking that I encounter at these D&D games is all like beer, wine, cider, right? People
sipping drinks.
Just for the most part don't seem to have an interest in having gin and tonics or, Long Island iced teas at the gaming table with them.
I can sit down for a casual game of D&D with my Red Bull vodka.
Fucking Four Loko, let's go.
Got a line of shots ready.
Yeah.
Let's
Every time I take damage, I also take a shot.
Let me just move my character sheet real quick so I don't spill my Bahama Mama on it.
So, I guess I do have a related question, which is a little bit more serious, which is that, like, if you do encounter somebody who goes overboard, because I was in a, relatively recently, without naming any kind of names or anything like that, I was in an online game where one of the players was clearly and obviously intoxicated and kind of like seemed to be like in a little bit of distress, like was just having trouble with the game. And it was clearly a situation where but none of us knew what to do. We just kind of just sort of kept playing without saying anything because, like I said, because it wasn't somebody we knew, but there was very clearly something going on there. And after that game, they dropped out, but it was very uncomfortable for everyone. And, figuring out what you're going to do about that situation, that's tough. That's
how
not
far
easy.
Into the session were you before it started being a problem?
Like it became clear. We had to split the party thing because we were doing an investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it became clear right from the jump when they're just asking this person what they were doing with their character, that there was something going on, and it got more pronounced as the game went on.
How long did it go on after?
It was the whole game.
I think at that point you have to be like, okay, we're going to stop for a minute so that we can collect ourselves. And then if you don't want to make a big deal about it, message them privately, be like, hey, are you okay? You don't seem like you're really engaged with the game. You seem like you're going to have some trouble here. Do you want us to just call the session, or do you want me to have you bow out?
Yeah.
Because you're not in a state currently that you're going to either enjoy the game or be effective in the game.
Yeah, sorry. Answering your question, it was 3 hours or so that session. Although I think we ended it a little early. Just kind of everybody was like, "What do we do?"
Right.
I'm not sure. But you're right, absolutely. That engaging with that person is kind of what you got to do. But certainly the rest of us as players were like,
yeah. I'm a little bit tone deaf to social interaction, so I would probably just straight up be like, okay, hold on a second, are you good? Because you don't seem good. But that's just a me thing. Not everybody's as abrasive as me.
No, but that's it. Nobody was pissed off or anything. Everyone was just worried about him.
Yeah.
That it was so clearly this was a scheduled game that everyone was there for, and psyched to be there, and they were in this state where clearly there was some kind of either they messed something up or or weren't planning on it. But yeah, it was pretty distressing when that happened.
I think Josey's solution is the best way to handle that. You just got to get to a point if you notice it and you can kind of deal with it, you deal with it as long as you can deal with it. Call for a break. This was online, you said?
Yes, yeah. Online
DM the problem player, be like, hey, this is what I'm noticing. Are you cool? Are we good? Do you need to take the session off? Should we figure something out? If they got bow out, be like, oh yeah, he's going to go check this out for a while. His character's over there. Don't worry about him.
Sure. Yeah.
Something could have genuinely been wrong, or he could have just been embarrassed that he acted like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And it's, and I mean, at the end of the day, it's not my business which of those it was, but I just, that's one of those reasons, if you know you're going to be doing that, you do kind of have to make sure you're keeping an eye out for anybody that does kind of, like I said, hit that tipping point where it goes from being fun to being difficult.
Yeah. And one player doesn't get to ruin it for everyone else.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So it is still in the table's best interest to deal with that problem. All right. I think we are out of good advice. So before we start giving out bad advice, we should wrap this thing up.
Oh, wait, I have some bad advice.
I'm sure you do.
I'll just save it for next time.
All right.
I'll come up with a list. I'll be prepared to give you bad advice.
We got some more fun episodes coming up. Go check us out, Curmudgeons and Dragons.
Kill the DM's horse.
Go check out curmudgeonsanddragons.com. curmudgeonsanddragons.com/support. we'll give you a link where you can buy us a coffee. It does help offset the cost of running the show, and it lets us know that you really do truly love us, and we can really use that in these trying times. CurmudgeonsandDragons.com/store. You can go pick up yourself up a t-shirt with my dragon face on it, or Josey's dragon face on it.
My
Or a
beautiful dragon face on it.
That is enough like Greg, where you can pretend it's Greg's face holding Jack's cat. So,
Or one of the many cats that lives in Greg's house.
yes.
So many cats.
Either way, we'd love if you can leave us a review. The show is free, and it's free for you to listen to, and leaving a review is free for you to do, and it does help us out like a ton. So if you don't want to buy a shirt, you don't want to buy anything like that, you can leave us a review. It doesn't cost you a thing, except a minute of your time, and it helps us out a ton. CurmudgeonsandDragons.com/reviews. You can leave us a review right on the website, or you can do it through Apple or Spotify. That's all I got today. Jim, Greg, Josey, guys, thanks so much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Once again, I'm Jason, and we will see you next time.
Bye,
Have a
guys.
good night.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to Curmudgeons and Dragons. Please share this with your favorite adventurers. Leave a review on Apple and follow us on social media. All links can be found at curmudgeonsanddragons.com. Practice safe adventuring, my friends.
This has been a JTP Audio podcast. Thanks for listening.